and employs a strong Anglo-Saxon term that is bound to win over the ladies. I mean, I stopped there and said this a wee bit harsh, you know. This isn't reconciliatory language,
It's
but
not.
there you go. Um, hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Audiophiles. My name's John. His name's Andy. Ice, your only rivers run cold. These city lights, they shine as silver and gold. Dug from the night, your eyes as black as coal. More on that later, but we've got a tune to listen to, selected by Andy. Andy, please tell me now. Is that now what song you've got?
I've got a song called Poke, and it is by the artist Frightened Rabbit. Are you familiar with them at all?
Yes.
Okay. But you don't know this track, I assume.
No, I only know one track. I stumbled across them a wee while ago. They're on some Scottish TV doing a cover version of Whole of the Moon by the Waterboys, which is why I watched it.
Well,
And they were some of the band were bedecked in tartan and kilts and stuff. And yeah, it's a very pleasant experience. Got quite a bit of the old what would you call it? That sort of West London folk scene from
yeah,
the, but obviously not from West London.
right. Yeah. Because they're
But
from
yeah, but
Albuquerque, New Mexico, of course.
I got a big strong Trossachs vibe from them, but I don't know. Um,
Right on. Well, this is probably I think this is my favorite song by them. And I've kind of picked it for a reason. So I'd like you to go off, give it a listen, and then we can come back and kind of chop it up a little bit.
Okie dokie.
Awesome.
Poke at my iris. Why can't I cry about this? Maybe there is something that you know that I don't. We adopt a brand new language, communicate through pursed lips, and you try not to put on any sexy clothes or graces. I might never catch a mouse and present it in my mouth to make you feel you're with someone who deserves to be with you. But there's one thing we've got going, and it's the only thing worth knowing. It's got lots to do with magnets and the pull of the moon. Why won't our love keel over as...
Yeah, it seems like it's going in the same direction for a while, so that'll stop here. Nice start. It's that lovely sort of folksy acoustic guitar. I noticed just then a couple of times there's a sort of nice sort of metallic clanging of the strings, which is just another brush to the sonic palette, as they say. Yeah, this feels like slightly confrontational, not hugely, but also confessional at the same time. And I don't particularly remember his vocals from the one track I heard from them before, but it was all kind of very Mumford and Sons esque. But this one, and he's singing it, it's just ever so slightly like he's running out of breath. You know, when people are talking when they've been crying or upset and they have trouble with their breathing, and it seems like he's getting to the limit of his breath on a lot of these lines. And I take it that's a deliberate choice and effect, which sort of adds a little bit of tension to what he's saying as well, rather than just whinging. So yeah, it's interesting. Clearly, the lyrics are very important here. I'm wondering, from what he's saying, this is a relationship song. I don't know if they've broken up yet or they are in trouble and thinking about it or about to, but it's around that sort of area. This is not the first flush of romance, definitely. Poke out my iris. Why can't I cry about this? And then there's some pursed lips and her not wearing sexy clothes and stuff like that. Yeah, it doesn't sound great, does it? Okay, let's see how it progresses.
It chokes on a bone. We can mourn its passing and then bury it in snow. Or should we kick its content and watch as it dies from bleeding?
That seemed a tad unnecessary. Yeah, he's getting quite visceral now, isn't he? Yeah, interesting. Right.
Or should we kick its content and watch as it dies from bleeding? If you don't want to be with me, just say and I will go.
That's pretty.
Change our partners. This is a progressive dance, but remember it was me who dragged you up to the sweaty floor. Well, this has been a real. I've got shin splints and a stitch from weed, but like a drunken night, it's the best bits that are coloured in. You should look through some old photos.
Yeah, I don't know if it's my imagination here, but his voice sounds like a little bit more wavery. Maybe it's just the lyrics, but I'm sure there's just a touch more emotion in his voice without breaking down. I may be imagining it. I'm going to put it back a sec. But yeah, and he's got this imagery now of dancing, this progressive dance, and him dragging him to the sweaty dance floor and shin splints and things like that, which is a nice sort of metaphor for a relationship and been used often. Let's go back a wee touch.
Shin splints and a stitch from weed, but like a drunken night, it's the best bits that are coloured in. You should look through some old photos. I adored you in every one of those. If someone took a picture of us now, they'd need to be told that we had ever clung in ties. And maybe not with arms at night. I'd say she was his sister, but she doesn't have his nose. And now we're unrelated and rid of all the shit we hate. But I hate when I feel like this, and I never hated you.
Just he had a couple of vocal sort of uplifts there, and those couple of lines before, and then that line he said, "But I never hated you," which in terms of a relationship and a breakup, that's quite a profound and poignant thing to say. Yeah, interesting. Interesting way to end. Um, so after I stop that, there's no more lyrics. Um, so you got a minute and a half probably of just writing it out. And obviously it's pretty much, it's flowing the same way all the way through. Um, and it's kind of very reflective, and my mind starts to wander at this point. It's a nice way of giving a bit of space to ponder on what's just been said, which I think is probably a good idea in any sort of relationship discussion. Um, yeah, it put me in mind of the way the music was going and the guitars, and the vocals. It just reminded me of trickling water almost, or a river flowing, which again is another oft-used metaphor for relationships and life. Um, yeah, it's interesting. This I can. I only got a tenth of the words. I'd have to listen to it again. Musically, it's very pleasant. It's nothing outstanding, but it's just really nice. And I think there is a nice shaped heart behind the intent of all this. Um, so I can see why Andy likes it. And he'll probably quote some of his favourite lyrics from this. I can imagine that. Um, it's interesting. I was just thinking about, breakups of relationships and music and songs. And I think when you're younger, you have this bubblegum pop, um, and it's all wow, and um, I really like that person, and is she really going out with him? And stuff like that. And then it becomes a bit more sort of pointed and teen angst. Um, and then you get a slightly more, I don't know if it's mature or just distance from the white heat of emotion, where you can actually figure out um, what that relationship was and what it meant. And hopefully what you can take through it throughout your life, different relationships, will affect you, hopefully in a good way, until you find the one which sticks, if you do indeed, and lucky enough to do that. Yeah, this guy's got me thinking this, hasn't it? That's what a minute and a half of just music will do for you. No, I enjoyed this. It's interesting and thoughtful. Yeah, okay. So we better go back and discuss it some more with Andy.
Okay, well, welcome back. And what have you got to say on this track, Poke?
Okay, so lovely acoustic guitar picking away at the start, and it has that folksy feel to it that probably lends more than little to Nick Drake in my mind, anyway. And your man starts singing. Now, I can't really strongly remember his voice from the track that I heard by them. It was just once, and it was on YouTube, other than this sort of Mumford and Sons-esque vibe that I got with a sort of Scottish tinge. But interestingly here, he sounds, I don't know if this is me projecting, but he sounds to me like he's almost at the end of his breath. The lines that he's singing at the start are a touch confrontational and maybe a bit confessional, and his delivery is that sort of shortness of someone who's trying to hold it together, who doesn't have complete control of their breathing / emotions. And this really subtle kind of emotional shading, but I thought it was a really nice touch. That's what I got from that. So very quickly I realized that this is an important lyric song. So
He
I
rolls his eyes.
quickly grasped that it's a relationship song. I wasn't sure at first, but it seems that we were arriving just before the post-mortem, which is always fun. There's a really nice, with this acoustic guitar, there's a really nice occasional metallic clanging of guitar, which I really like. It's just every now and then, sort of third line or something. And those sort of touches, those bits of additional sound, I always think makes you feel closer to the song, like it's being made in front of you, rather than you listen to a recording.
Yeah.
So he spits out his first lines. Poke out my iris. Why can't I cry about this? And then he mentioned something about pursed lips and her not wearing any sexy clothes. So it's interesting. As I say, all's not well. He pitches the relationship then as this dying body and employs a strong Anglo-Saxon term that is bound to win over the ladies. I mean, I stopped there and said this a wee bit harsh, you know. This isn't reconciliatory language.
It's not.
But there you go. At the 120-minute mark, an acoustic guitar joins in with some lovely vocal ooze as well. And I also hear another guitar briefly. I mean, it was probably there more, but I heard it briefly. And I'm wondering, I thought it might be a bass guitar really sort of high up doing higher notes. It sounded, it was doing like a bass part. So I really, again, at this point, I really enjoyed the sound of the fingers sliding on the strings of the guitar. For some reason, it's always pleasing. I guess a lot of sound engineers work their fucking ass off to get rid of it on recordings, but you know, again, I think it brings you closer to the performance.
Yes, it's more intimate.
And this little noodling is a very pretty sort of break in the proceedings. Then you see it comes back in with these images, and he mentions changing partners, progressive dance, about the fact he dragged her up to the sweaty floor. It says it mentions a Scottish reel, which I think is a play on words. On so this has been real, and he ends up with shin splints and a stitch, and that's a sort of line that Prime Morrissey would say. It's a well-used metaphor, this of dance as a relationship, but it's nonetheless effective, and it's done really well. Now, I don't know if it's my imagination at this point, but I detected a very slight wavering in his voice, especially when he mentioned looking through some old photos. Again, it was subtle, but it was more sort of slight emotional shading without being, look, I'm really upset. You know, it's just, I felt it. Again, whether it was there or not, I felt it. There was something about a sister who didn't have his nose, which I'm sure he needed it himself. But anyway, I didn't really catch that. It was something to do with looking how they looked in the relationship, I think. And then at 12:50, there's just a couple of notes in the line he sings "When I Feel Like This," where he goes higher. And I'm just thinking, for that instant, is the dam going to break? Is he going to burst into some emotional thing? But then he says the line, "I never hated you," and then wisely backs off. And we get a minute and a half of instrumental with some ooze until the song finishes. Now, I think it's quite a bold choice, this, to just, stop it there in terms of the singing and just strum out, as it were. But as I started listening to this, and this sort of hypnotic rhythm of the picking electric guitar washed over me, along with there was another sort of slightly more buzzy guitar filling in some bigger notes, I realized it was actually a really great choice. From their playing, I got trickling water and the flow of a river in my mind, and it's, which again is another metaphor which you can use for a relationship or life itself and your passage down it and who you meet along the way. It's easy to project sadness or regret into this, and sure, there is a dollop of that in the lyrical section, but what I found was the final instrumental part gave space to reflect on what had been said, especially that sort of poignant final line, I never hated you. My mind did wander at this point, thinking about relationships portrayed in music from like young bubblegum pop, and I think I mentioned the reaction sort of, oh, does he like me or does she like me, and is she really going out with him, through teen angst, and then to something more sort of mature, or distant or bitter, where you're able to take a more considered view on a past relationship and you're not in that white heat of raw emotion, and you can then think about how it meant and what it, how it plays out within your life and what you got from it or didn't get or whatever, and the various ups and downs. So I really like that sort of thoughtful process at the end, and that final part really elevated my reaction to the song and got me thinking, which is always a good thing. I think musically it's very, very simple. But that really wasn't the point. It was what it was trying to get across, I think. So yeah, enjoyed it.
Yeah, awesome, man. I'm glad you did. You picked up on, I think, all the poignancy that this song, I think, is sort of saturated with, in its simplicity, but it's also for what it for. I mean, I guess it makes up for the simplicity with the tactfulness of how it's constructed and how the lyrics are delivered. I think that last line, it's similar to what you're saying. I think it's almost aspirational. Like sometimes you say things because you mean them, and sometimes you say things because you want to mean them. And I think he wants to not look back on this relationship in anger, and I think he says it, and then that musical movement that happens thereafter is kind of like the eventual peace that does come with bringing that statement to fruition, and coming to the realization that, yeah, I don't have any ill will. I found peace after this. And I just think it's incredibly beautiful, this song. So thank you for giving it a listen. A little bit about the band. A little bit, I say a little bit. Frightened Rabbit, they were a Scottish band formed in Selkirk in 2003. Initially a solo project for vocalist and guitarist Scott Hutchison, the final lineup of the band consisted of Hutchison, his brother Grant on drums, Bill Kennedy on guitar and bass, Andy Monahan on guitar and keyboards, and Simon Liddell on guitar. From 2004, the band was actually based in Glasgow. In total, they've released 5 studio albums. Frightened Rabbit's first studio album, Sing the Greys, was recorded by the Hutchison brothers and Bill Kennedy and released on an independent label, Hit the Fans, in 2006. The band subsequently signed with Fat Cat Records in 2007 and shortly after recorded their second album, The Midnight Organ Fight, on which this song features. The album was released to strongly positive reviews and extensive touring, with guitarist and keyboardist Andy Monahan, who I mentioned earlier, joining the band to flesh out the live performances. Viewed as a showpiece of modern Scottish music, the album has continued to receive recognition long after its release. It has been featured in various year and decade-end critic lists. Speaking of his writing for the album, Hutchison explained, "It's usually the music first, and I hum and sing syllables to feel out the rhythm and melody, then I finally write the words. Most songs just arrive the way they do by accident, and it's not particularly contrived. It's very important to move the listener and feel that it is and I feel that is music's main goal, to make another human feel something." When asked about his guitar work on the record, the frontman said, "I really love the challenge of 22 frets, 6 strings, and seeing what I could do with that, as opposed to stepping on a pedal to change the music. You know, there's such a wide range of sounds that you can get from a guitar, and it's just fun to get different ones every time you pick it up." Which, even though you and I are both suckers for, shoegaze and all the knob fuckery that goes along with pedal boards, this is actually kind of refreshing to hear, and it's good to listen to music like this sometime too that's very organic and rootsy, and it's just a person and their instrument. So I appreciated that little blurb by him. Lyrically, Hutchison stated go ahead.
Sorry, yeah. Just to check, and again, that circles back to Nick Drake and what he was able to do, and all tuning, and even the way where his hands were when he played and how he did it, different sound every time, which again is mastery.
Exactly.
And you appreciate someone picking up acoustic guitar and being able to do that is really awesome.
Yeah. And I got to say, it's funny because you've mentioned Drake a couple times now, and part of me rubbing my hands together in anticipation of bringing this one to you was to see if you would be like, yes, this is Drake. Like this because I know how much you revere him, and rightfully so. Yeah. And when I listened to Drake, the first time you had me listen to Nick Drake, I thought of bands that I had heard before that kind of maybe took from him or just, were cut from a similar cloth. And I was like, this is definitely one to bring to the table. So excellent stuff. But yeah, lyrically, Hutchins stated that most of the lyrics are pretty direct and that the album almost spells out what's happened. Regarding the personal nature of the lyrics, Scott states that he couldn't really write about anything else, and I can still visualize the events in each song, which perhaps makes the delivery more genuine, which I think you also picked up on just in the most minor changes in inflection in his tone or the words that he chose. It's really, really cool stuff. The artwork for the album was also done solely by Hutchison, having spent 4 years at art college. He said of it, I didn't particularly want to be an illustrator, so I wanted to apply the rules that I learned to everything I do in terms of working in a bank or writing music. The Midnight Organ Fight was met with widespread critical acclaim, as mentioned, and it's sampling 16 reviews. The review aggregator website Metacritic awarded the album a weighted average of 80%. Josh Modell of the AV Club awarded the album an A- grade and particularly praised the honesty throughout the record. It's Hutchinson's utterly believable desperation and frank lyrics that push the whole thing from good to great. It doesn't make for easy listening, but nothing this flatly honest and powerful ever is. Travis Parno of Absolute Punk scored the album at 86% and summarized the sound of the album as bleak, wandering, and wanton. Somehow, though, the music remains strangely approachable and damn near uplifting. Drowned in Sound writer Jordan Dowling rated the album a 9 out of 10 and praised the simplicity found in the song structures, while stating that the band had shaven off the instrumental passages that snaked through their first release and created 14 blissfully simple pop songs. Mishka Perlman, writing for The Fly, awarded the near-perfect score of 4.5 out of 5. They opined that his tremulous, trembling effort of stripped-back guitars shot nerves, existential crisis, and a sad, twisted heart. Terrific. Review website IGN awarded the album 9.8 out of 10 and lauded the effort as a modern classic. Writer Chad Grishkow comments that the Midnight Organ Fight triumphantly feeds your heart, soul, feet, and mind all at once and will become an instant favorite with just one listen. Frightened Rabbit is one of the rare bands that have perfected their sound on their sophomore effort. Writing for Lost at Sea magazine, John Burke awarded the album 9.5 out of 10 and noted that there is honesty in these songs that cannot be found on most of the pretentious pap getting heralded as the next big thing. Whether or not you choose to accept it, the fact is that Scotland's own Hutchison brothers have created a sweet, powerful collection of tunes with the Midnight Organ Fight. Drowned in Sound ranked the album at number 2 in the best albums of 2008 list, with Alexander Tudor writing, "Fact, casual listeners will buy what they're told if it's got tunes and a catchphrase, which means that airwaves are always polluted with inanities, and we assume the norm is natural. But word of mouth means something. It means you're kept listening. Maybe it means you loved that album. You felt like it was yours. And that votes you choose to send in tell us the not-so-casual listener does care for the words he or she listened to. In this case, an album about breaking up and fucking up, with the grisliest imagery since Arab Strap and moral complexity eclipsing Belle and Sebastian." It ranked number 27 on the Fly's end-of-year and album list. The Midnight Organ Fight also appeared in NME's end-of-the-year list at number 36, as well as being included in their greatest albums of the decade article. The album also received a year of end-of-year inclusions from various other media, including Alternative Ulster, the AV Club, Magnet, Lost at Sea, Pitchfork Media, and The Village Voice. Now, let's get into these lyrics. And they are some very pointed lyrics. "Poke at my iris. Why can't I cry about this? Maybe there's something that you know that I don't. We adopt brand new language, communicate through pursed lips, and try not to put on any of those sexy clothes or graces. I might never catch a mouse and present it in my mouth to make you feel you're with someone who deserves to be with you. But there's one thing we've got going, and it's the only thing worth knowing. It's got lots to do with magnets and the pool of the moon. Why won't our love keel over as it chokes on a bone and we mourn its passing and then bury it in the snow? Or should we kick its cunt in and watch it as it dies from bleeding? If you don't want to be with me, just say and I will go. Ooh, ooh. We can change our partners. This is a progressive dance, but remember it was me who dragged you up to the sweaty floor. Well, this has been a real. I've got shin splints and a stitch from we, but like a drunken night, it's the best bits that are colored in. You should look through some old photos. I adored you in every one of those. It's someone if someone took a picture of us now, they'd need to be told that we had never clung and tied a navy knot with arms at night. I'd say she was his sister, but she doesn't have his nose. And now we're unrelated and rid of all the shit we hated. But I hate when I feel like this, and I never hated you. And then we get that sort of large instrumental portion with the oohs going on. Yeah. A haunting song about the last vestiges of a once passionate relationship. Scott Hutchison highlighted this as one of his personal favorites on the album, and it's one of mine as well. And I picked it because May 9th, this episode is going to air on May 9th, and that is an important date as it relates to Hutchison, because on May 9th, 2018, Scott Hutchison was reported missing by Scottish police and members of Frightened Rabbit. Hutchison was last seen early on the morning of May 9th, leaving his hotel in South Queensbury. His brother and bandmate Grant, on the band's official Twitter account, urged anyone with information on his whereabouts to contact the police in Scotland. On May 10th, police found a body at Port Edgar in South Queensbury, which was the next day confirmed to be Hutchison's. And in May 2019, the Hutchison family established Tiny Changes, a mental health charity named after a lyric from the band's song Head Rolls Off, in memory of Scott. So yeah, just a way of saying, rest in peace to Scott Hutchison, and thanks for the hauntingly beautiful music that you've put out there. Really, really powerful stuff on this album. And I thought you might enjoy it, and there might be some correlations between him and his music and Nick Drake and some of his as well. So I'm glad that resonated with you and you kind of picked up on that, man.
You think some of the artists write with emotional intelligence usually and tackle difficult subjects, and yet they can't handle real life in whatever way, for whatever reason, either they come up short or they have mental health issues or whatever. And it's the people you listen to their songs, think about Linkus or Nick Drake, it's still not absolutely clear if he was just stoned out of his head, or it was an accident he died, or whether he did kill himself. Your man here, Scott, as well. It's astounding when you listen to some of their work that has this emotional intelligence in it. You think, well, they should be the people that are best equipped to deal with life, because I'm listening to their songs and I'm learning from them, or it's making me feel better. And it's a crying clown, I guess, inside there. And away you go. It's just incredible, really.
Yeah, it's all what's incredible, John, is that it has the way that they convey this emotional intelligence is always and consistently through their art. It's never even though these are words, they're words set to music, and it's this whole process. Yeah. You'd probably be incredibly hard pressed to just sit down and just say what he feels without the advent of his craft to help him do that. And you get that across, I think, all mediums of art, right? But you're right. I mean, at first glance and listen, you think, oh my God, this person is equipped to address any emotional peril and do so really eloquently. But here we are. And you're right. It's a reoccurring theme.
Again. Yeah.
It's been happening for decades, of just, that's the wheel that keeps rolling. But yeah, it's a sad, tragic state of things, because I think these guys could have been even bigger than they were if they had kept putting out music of this quality. So yeah, anyway, RIP to all the great artists out there and emotionally intelligent songwriters. This is really fun to get you to listen to this and have this discussion. Guys out there in the listening audience, let us know what you think of Frightened Rabbit, Poke, some of their other great songs, which are clearly out there from this album or any of their others. Feel free to like, share, and subscribe if you'd be so inclined. We are trudging along here to 1,000. Perhaps by the time this airs, we will be beyond it. But then there is the next goal. And we can't reach that or any of our goals without you guys. We really, really do appreciate it. All that out of the way, John and I will hopefully see all y'all in growing numbers in the next installment of the Audiophiles. See you later, guys.